So if you're wondering how much you should charge as a consultant, you've come to the right video. It's Paul Tobey from Training Business Pros, and as a consultant for many years, there are 4 different pricing structures that you can use to earn money as a consultant. You're going to want to hear them all. In addition to that, there's some things that you absolutely need to have in place in order to earn some bigger money. And by bigger money, I mean probably more than you're getting, because if you're searching for how much a consultant should charge, then you're probably relatively new to this business. So stick around. I've got some keen insights to share with you and a lot of experience. You're going to want to hear every word. Let's get started. Okay, like I said in the beginning, I've been a consultant for many years. I've had several different pricing structures over the years, and there are combinations of pricing structures. You're going to want to hear what those are. There's 4 of them. You can count on all of them to work. Some are a little bit better than others, but let's start off with what I think is important before we get into the money aspect. So a few things to consider here. Number 1, decide who you're consulting for. What type of client is that, and what kind of ROI can they expect? So that's your first consideration. It's like, if you're consulting for little old ladies who knit for a living, I'm suggesting to you that that's probably not as much as you could charge for somebody who's an established business and who wants to double or even triple the size of their business over time. Now, some of the bigger businesses, they just want an 8% return, and in some cases a 20% return. And that's probably a lot for them. So consider that when you're thinking about how much you should charge. It should be absolutely proportional to the amount that you're going to help them grow. And again, it really depends on the audience that you're after. Consider that seriously, because if you're going to be a consultant, you're going to want to know if your audience can actually afford you. All right, let's move on to number 2 in this list. You absolutely need to be sure that you've got step-by-step solutions that are going to solve that client's problems. Yes, they have lots of problems and they need them solved. And what they don't need is a bunch of information, because that will not solve their problem. But yet you need to provide them a step-by-step solution in order to solve that problem. And you're going to have to be there the entire time to make sure that they know how to implement and carry out that solution. So whatever business or individual you're focused on as your client, make sure that you've got enough experience in order to solve that person's problem. And of course, step by step, that's probably what they need. All right, let's move on to number 3. And now we're getting into the nitty-gritty of how you're going to charge. And I've got 4 different pricing structures. And these 4 different ways are a little bit different. So you want to pay attention to this, because this is important, because you want to make money. And that's probably why you're asking the question in the first place. So here's 4 different ways to set your pricing. The first way is to get paid by the hour. And I'm suggesting to you that if your audience is an affluent audience, it's a business audience, that you're probably charging somewhere in the neighborhood of $250 to $500 an hour. And you may say to yourself, well, that's what my lawyer charges. Yeah, that's true. And that might be what the client says initially. It was like, wow, you charge a lot. But the reality is that lawyers cost them money. They don't necessarily make them money. You're going to help them make money, and that should be directly proportional to what you're charging. And I think $250 minimum is probably a great place to start. Now, if you're not comfortable with that, you can certainly start a little bit lower. And then as you get busier, you can maybe ramp that up. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The second type of pricing structure is to charge monthly. Now, this is where the majority of your clients will sit. And you don't want to really get them into long-term contracts. You want to deliver on your promises. So make it 30 days, 30 days, 30 days. They can quit whenever they want. They just need to give you a month's notice. And they'll stick around because you're solving their problems. You're helping them with their businesses. You're helping them solve whatever it is they need to solve. And of course, you can keep them in your portfolio as long as you keep doing that. And as far as monthly charges are concerned, I would suggest to you that you're anywhere between $2,500 and $5,000 monthly. That's probably where most consultants are who are worth anything. Again, got to have the experience and you have to know that you're going to solve their problem. But if you want to know what typical consultants like myself are charging, that's where it is. Somewhere between $2,500 and $5,000, some a little bit higher in that price range, some on the lower range. But minimum $2,500, I think it's a good place to start. Okay, the third way, which is not one of my favorite ways, is to charge by the project. Now, the problem with this one is it's really hard sometimes to guesstimate how big that project is, how big the scope is, because sometimes, you may have done it for another client before, but this client could be totally different. They might be harder to work with. They might have more demands, scope creep, all of that. Not my favorite thing to do, although if they insist, then make sure you're on the higher range of what you think is possible. Just whatever numbers in your head, at least add 20% for that, for just the trouble of all of the extra work that you're not anticipating. Over the years, I've learned to kind of shy away from project-based fees because I've missed the mark several times, and I think to myself, wow, I really should have charged more. Because you're looking at the return on investment that client is getting from that project, and it's not always in line with what you initially charged. So they may be getting a deal, and that's why it's not my favorite thing. If you charge monthly, you can draw that project out for several months until it's complete, until you feel satisfied that you've actually earned enough money from the project. It could backfire also, by the way, monthly, because you undercharge because you finished the project within a few months, and something that could have taken longer. I've done that many times before. So I still like monthly over project base, but I think you get the idea. Now, the last way to charge is very risky. You may have to do this in the beginning, and I do it from time to time. In fact, I'm in the middle of one project right now that I may or may not have judged it correctly, but that's to work based on results. Now, that means that you're looking at a specific monetary outcome. You can't gauge it on anything else. If it's based on sales and revenue, and then I don't think profit is necessarily the best way to go about it, but if it's based on revenue, then you can anticipate based on your experience how much revenue that client is going to earn, and then you're going to take a percentage of that revenue. Now, again, it's risky. I'm thinking in the neighborhood of, depending obviously of the product, the service, whatever it is you're selling, I'm thinking 35% is kind of where you should be sitting. A little bit higher, a little bit lower, but that's kind of where you should be if you're going to work based on results. Now, if you're getting into business with somebody who's new and there's no proven product, I definitely would not work based on results. But if they've proven themselves before, they've got a viable business, and it looks to you like you're going to make money, then I think charging based on results is a great thing. So those are the 4 pricing structures. I hope that helps you a lot. Let's move on to number 4, which I think is equally as important as the initial pricing structure, and that's this. It's all supply and demand. The busier you are, the more you can charge. And I know that kind of sounds sometimes counterintuitive because, of course, the more clients you get, you're kind of pooling all of that money together. But it's basically, you're going to run out of time. And the only thing you can do then is start to charge more hourly and more monthly. And of course, your reputation grows. You get lots of referrals. You absolutely need to bump up your fees over time. And of course, the busier you are, as I mentioned, the more money you can charge. All right, number 5. This is the last thing that I want to focus on, and then I'm going to tell you what to do next, which is equally as good as what's in this video, and you're going to want to hear it as well. So let's move on to number 5, and then I'll tell you what to do. Number 5 is, it's way easier to keep an existing client than it is to find a new one. An existing client, you don't have to figure out any new pricing structures. You just have to keep going with the one you've got now. And I'm going to tell you, even if you think you're going to take on other clients and you're going to start charging more for them, it's so much easier to keep the one you've got. So here's my suggestion. Whatever promises you made to them, deliver on those promises. Do not falter. Do not get complacent. Do not sit back on your laurels and think that they're going to be okay with paying you $3,500 a month. You absolutely need to continue delivering and over-delivering on your promises. Otherwise, if you lose that client, it's much, much harder to find a new one, and then you're going to have to consider one of the 4 pricing structures that I've given you. So that's really important. Okay, so you want to know then you got this pricing structure. I've shared with you, I think, what you should be charging as a viable consultant, somebody with experience. And by the way, if you start charging less than that, they're not going to think you're worth it. So stick to your guns. That's what you're going to charge, and they'll be willing to pay it if they are decent clients. But what are you going to do next? So now that you have this, you need to actually go and find some clients. So I've got a great video that talks about how to market and find yourself some new clients. That's what I'm going to post here at the end. Click on that video and watch every minute of it, because I'm good at finding clients and you're going to want to hear what I have to say. All right. Thanks a lot. I hope to see you in another video. If you think about maybe subscribing to the channel, that'd be awesome.